We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Leslie Mitchell-Clark
and Wes Roberts,
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts. We are not alone. And welcome everyone to another edition of Contact TV. My name is Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and I'm joined as always by
Wes Roberts. Welcome.
That's right. And whether it's the evening or 3 in the morning or 7 in the morning or cocktail hour, we are here and we are joining you in your international location, wherever that may be. Now, as you know, we have prided ourselves on having many exciting, interesting, fascinating guests from the worlds of ufology and metaphysics and beyond. And today we are extremely excited. We have a guest that has come to us, Mr. Mike Patterson. And Mike has been involved for some years in perhaps the most unique and certainly the most evidential experiences with beings that we call the Sasquatch. And I'm just going to read a little tiny bit about Mike from his own website, which is called Sasquatch Ontario, before we bring him on. And Mike says, Sasquatch Ontario is about a hidden truth, one that has shown up in my life in a big way. It's a truth that has the capacity to evolve human consciousness individually and on a collective scale. Sasquatch truth has the capacity to shape our world through the expansion of human consciousness in a mind, body, spirit alignment of truth. It has now been 12 years of searching for answers since my initial close Sasquatch vocal encounter on October 25th, 2008. It was the moment that changed my life and put me on the path that I'm on today. And 8 of those years have involved personal contact experiences that continue to show up in my life, giving me incredible insight into their existence and how Sasquatch interact with humans. And without further ado, we would like to introduce our guest, Mike Patterson. Mike, thank you so much for joining us here on Contact TV today. So much. And that little fascinating blurb there that from your website, sasquatchontario.com, sort of leads us in to the whole story of how you came to this work and how these contacts began happening to you, either with or without solicitation. I'm not even sure about that. So Mike, over to you.
First, thanks for having me. I appreciate that, Leslie and Wes. This all started, I believe it actually started when I was a child at the age of 10 when we were up in, it was, I can't remember the name of the area, but it was up north, and my parents were staying, my family was staying at a chalet for the weekend, and back then you could drop your kids off and not get in trouble, so my dad would drop me off down the road to do some fishing. And there was a campground there, and it started getting dusk, so I started walking back up the road, and at one point there was a Sasquatch standing at the side of the road, and when I saw it, it might have been maybe 50 yards ahead. When I saw it, it just turned and disappeared. It was gone, not into thin air like I know they can do, but just stepped off into the brush at the side of the road and was gone, and it traumatized me, and I ran back to where I was fishing. There's a campground there, and I remember walking up to a fire with a family sitting around there, and I can still see the looks on their faces that, this is over 40 years ago, right? I can still see the looks on their faces that, they knew I just had a traumatizing experience. I was white as a ghost. I couldn't talk, I couldn't get words out. And finally I said help, and one of them, I think the father of the family, drove me back to where my family was. And I told everybody back then it was a bear, which is a common occurrence from my understanding. And then fast forward to 2008, I'd been in the woods photographing nature and wildlife just on my spare time, you know, spending a lot of time doing that. And apparently I was being watched. So one day I had an epiphany to start looking for Sasquatch. I don't know where that came from, but at this point I think they might have placed that thought there from, you know, what I understand about their abilities. And so 2008 I had my first close vocal encounter, and that's put me on this path I'm on today.
Incredible. And your research has revealed that any of these preconceived notions that we have had about Sasquatch, and I would like to ask you if Sasquatch of North America is in fact related to the Yeti and the swamp man down the south, if this is all one type of species, or is the Sasquatch of North America unique?
From my understanding, they are a people, and in fact they are a human type. They're not fully human, they're not Homo sapien, but they are human and something else, as they've relayed to me through written communication, because that's what this situation has been developed to, where I'm using a chalkboard and a sketch pad and getting drawings and asking questions and getting answers from them. So they are a people, and I assume as diverse as we are as a people. So from my understanding, they're all connected. Everything's connected, from my understanding, that we're connected to them. We're connected to everything, and as they are. So.
Are they indigenous to this planet, Mike? Or are they the highest form of evolution that maybe occurred out of the Miocene apes? Or are they something else? Were they placed here somehow?
I've been asking recently, the last couple of visits, about who created you, who created us, and I haven't gotten a response to that yet. But I did ask them at one point, where do you come from? Where do your people come from? And they wrote home here always. Then they wrote S-L-U-R-K, slurk, whatever that means. I don't know what that stands for, but that was the response they gave at the time.
Interesting.
So I have no idea what that is.
Mm-hmm. Are they nocturnal?
The activity tends to be more so at night, but no, any time of day, anywhere. Their ability to show their presence, which I've learned, it comes in numerous forms, both indoors and out, which, like the place I'm living at now, I'm in the woods, and the second day that I moved in there, I was unpacking. I have this nice mask my parents brought me back from one of their trips. It was up the Amazon, and this beautiful mask, and one of the beads under the eye had fallen out. So I took it and I placed it on a shelf in the living room, and it rolled off to the side and went down a little crack there between the shelf and the wall. And so I was like, okay, I just left it. You know, I'm unpacking my stuff, and then it was the next day when I grabbed a butter knife to go pop that bead out. So I went and I looked, and it wasn't there. And I thought, well, that's weird. Where the hell is it? You know, there's nobody else there. And there's another shelf just above it. And suddenly it started bouncing on the shelf above it. So I was like, hey, we're here. You know, this is something that has happened a lot in my life. I've been witness to apports so many times. At this point, there's been a lot of marbles used to show their presence. They come out of thin air. You know, they'll hit me, or not hard, just, you know, both indoors and out. But they finally showed it. They showed it to me happening in slow motion, and they did it right in front of my face. So, you know, basically a couple feet in front of my face. I turned my head. I was visiting the cottage at the time. And I suddenly see this marble being pushed through empty space, and then it dropped to the floor. I was running audio outside. We had the window open, so I captured my reaction to it when it happened. And then they did it again on the next visit when I was putting my shoes on to step outside.
Oh, goodness.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, so they've held this and allowed me to see this push through empty. It looked like a wormhole, like you would see. I would expect that it would be pushing outwards, but no, it was inwards.
Interesting. You know, it's long been, because the Sasquatch has been so elusive, well, who would who would blame them for being elusive with what goes on and people trying to mess with them. But is it possible for it's long been speculated that they can, step up their vibration or whatever it is and achieve invisibility or go from one place to another? Have you seen this happen? Are they able to move about spiritually in a sense, or?
Yeah, well, as you see, I've just dove right into the crazy aspect of all this. I've been witness to probably upwards of 1,000 encounter incidents over the past 8 years with Neff's family. And at this point, there's as much stuff happening indoors as out. So I'm using a chalkboard and a sketch pad. I leave them on the table. I put a camera on the table. They've actually imposed dozens of images at this point. And some of them, we're not present. It's happening in the cottage when we're outside. But there's some that have happened where I'm sitting there checking the camera every little bit, and it's right in front of me. I haven't left, and suddenly there's new images appearing. But I've had physical contact many times too. I get pokes, and I've been patting the head, even my face covered at one point. So as far as moving about with the indoor-outdoor thing, that to me that shows their interdimensional aspect. And as far as the invisibility, I think they are invisible, I believe, for the most part. And they you can feel the physical aspect of them when they touch you. So it shows me how they can leave a single footprint in the snow like they do, because we've been witness to hundreds from Neff's family, multiple family members. And when they do this, I could understand how they could leave a print without actually being seen in the physical, in this realm. So I had an incident at home too, not too long ago, with my girlfriend Jen there, and my landlord had contacted me through text. He's upstairs, and he said, "Hey, I heard a couple of wood knocks in the last half hour." He knows what I'm involved in, and he's very good with it and pays attention. So I told Jen, I said, I got to go out back. There's woods behind the house, and just to show my respect, right? So we went out about 1 o'clock in the morning, and this was before the snow, this winter. And suddenly I hear some wood knocks. I don't know if they're telepathic or they sounded distant. She didn't hear it. There was a bit of wind going on. And suddenly, it was about a minute later, we're standing there, and we both heard 3 footsteps, a brief pause, and then two more. It was about 6 feet in front of us, and we both were witness to the leaves kicking up. And then she got to witness the form. I believe it was a young, we both felt it was a male, a young male. So she saw his form through a shimmering. So I think they can adjust their vibration to be completely invisible, partially visible. They can show, we have a shot with an arm reaching over a snowmobile, which I found a marble in between 2 snowmobiles at one point. And I think they just showed just the arm. I think they can show their body in part or in whole. And it's just inherent quality. And I'm also aware that the infants already know how to do this.
Oh, some kind of endemic, not innate sort of thing that they come in with. Wes, did you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned how you first saw one of these beings. These days, or over the past few years, do you sense them? I'm interested in perception and sense, and let's just call it feeling, intuition. Do you sense them as well as physically encounter them?
I have at times, but it varies. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't know why that is. I've had moments where suddenly my skin's all tingling. I remember I went to a spot not far from where I live. I went into this forested area one night, and I took an audio recorder and I placed it down beside me, and it was a nice still night. I sat down on the ground beside it, and suddenly I felt this tingling on my body, but it was only on my left side, which I found rather odd, and I stated out loud that I could feel them. And when I went home and I played the audio back, there's a whisper, and also physical contact on the mic, which is something that they do often to show their presence. It's like, okay, there was nothing hitting that microphone. You know, I'm very aware of what I'm doing when I'm recording with the audios.
Go! Now. Go. Get out. Ah. No. No. Where you are? Mike. Oh.
So sometimes I can feel them, and other times there's been incidents, all kinds of times actually, there's been incidents when I don't know they're there. Dwayne and I have stood outside, he's the cottage owner, many times, and Neff's right there with us. He's standing right beside us, and you know, sometimes he'll give me a poke, or there was one funny incident where Dwayne was wearing a baseball cap, and Neff, I believe it was Neff, had given me physical contact. I said, "Oh, Neff's here." He said, "How do you know? You sure?" I said, "Of course. How long have we been doing this?" And he said, "You sure?" And suddenly his hat just flipped off, went flying up in the air. I said, "You believe me now?" There's a lot of humor involved with their activity. Like, they're very lighthearted people.
So you have been really engaging with what you would call a family group of some. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about their family structure, or is there a paternal, are they a maternal, a matriarchy or a patriarchy, or neither, or?
You know, it's, at this point, I don't even know how many family members there are. I did learn recently that I asked the age of Neff in human years and his sister. And it's funny, at first they wrote in the chalkboard, at first they wrote 48 for Neff, and then they rubbed it out and they put 25. So their timeline obviously differs from ours. So they're calculating, I asked them in human years too. So they wrote 25 for Neff, and his sister's name is Anastasia. They wrote 12 for her. So when this first started, he was 17 years old. So some of the vocalizations you hear from way back that I started posting back in 2013. He's a 17-year-old Sasquatch maturing man, and his little sister at the time was 4. And she's given her voice too, just not done really any talking. Just, you know, little vocals here and there. She likes to be outside the door, and it's funny because, you know, she'll pretend to be a door squeak, but her voice is very clear. You can tell it's her, and the door hasn't even been opened yet. So she does this. We're walking towards the door.
Sound.
Yeah, you can hear the footsteps from us coming towards the door, and she's already made this sound, and the door hasn't even been pushed open yet. So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Are these the same voices they use with one another, or are they for your sake?
I don't know. I would assume they converse with each other. I believe that, or not I believe, they are highly telepathic. So I would assume that, you know, some of their, or much of their conversations are utilized with telepathy, but, you know, they've also been recorded talking to each other and heard talking to each other.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There have been some recordings of that. And before we talk about these incredible casts here and that you've brought for us to look at. I mentioned in an earlier interview that you probably know what I do. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I work a lot with people in the hypnotic regression. And a number of people who have had experiences where they have visually seen a Sasquatch being either being beamed up into a craft or being beamed down. And I guess my question would be, do these beings have the way they are communicating with you, do they have open communication with other beings who might be extraterrestrial?
I'm completely convinced of that through my own personal experiences. As I was relaying to Dave earlier after his interview there, I'd had 2 UFO experiences 15 days apart. One, both placed basically in front of me. I could tell they were given purposely. And the one happened up in Neff's area. And there's been an incident that happened at the cottage one night where a being was looking through the window. I didn't witness this, but Dwayne did take a photo. And there was somebody else visiting at the time, and he had stepped out, I think, to get some wood or something outside the house, and there was a tap on the window, and this person got to witness this face looking in the window, and they told him when he came back inside, and he's like, yeah, okay, right. And then it happened again, and Dwayne just, I don't think he took his gaze off the window, and he grabbed his camera and managed to grab a shot. And the one thing that stuck out the most was the huge black eyes, like massive black eyes.
Oh, of a being that was checking in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And also their consciousness, they're highly telepathic. Their mind speak ability is absolutely astounding, which I've experienced numerous times at this point. So when the first time that happened, I was in that theta stage, laying on the couch at home. This is kind of around the beginning of when this all started happening, and they grunted in my head so loud. I shot to my feet so fast, and I was on the phones like, you wouldn't believe what happened, to Dwayne, right? And there's been other incidents that have happened since. So yeah, I believe because of that ability that there are no secrets among their people, and there is a connection to other beings.
Yeah, indeed.
Star people, star nations.
All right.
And that's why I asked about sentience. Sorry.
Sentience, oh, yes.
Yeah, that's why I asked about sentience and how they communicate. If you felt them or sensed them, that's kind of
so
what I meant.
all of that's true.
Yeah,
they can be felt and experienced, and they can be quasi-physical or fully physical, or in fact non-physical. They have a choice, like a step-up, step-down transformer.
Everything and everything in between, and it's quite extraordinary.
Wow.
You did that, dog.
You did that, Dwayne.
You.
You, my friend.
You.
I miss you, my friend.
Red.
In the who?
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 I did. Oh. Oh. Oh.
In the who? Now, to you, my friend. What is, Oomda?
Two. Yeah. Two. Da. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Ah.
Love you, buddy. Thanks for coming into my life, my friend.
Love you.
nice.
We love you. Ooh, John, too.
Oh man, I love you, buddy.
Can I tell you about my little
Of course.
experience? I've never shared this, but it happened in the Black Hills of South Dakota, where I was working in a summer theater as an actor, as an apprentice actor. And it was the middle of the night, and I was heading up to the bathhouse. This was pretty primitive conditions. So there was a separate bathhouse with one like lonely light bulb, you know, hanging outside. You had to go up a little hill. And as I headed towards the bathhouse, I saw some movement over to the right-hand side of the bathhouse. And as my eyes began to adjust, I thought it was a small bear cub, but then I saw a larger, darker figure behind the bear cub, my impression. And the little figure was jumping up and down, just like with glee or joy. Now here's the weird part. And then I heard a voice in my head that was as clear as a bell, and it said, I have to give my baby a walk. Like, I have to give my baby a walk. Please don't bother. That was the rest of it. And then I don't know why, I sent a message back, and I just said, go in peace and love. And, you know, and the whole thing, the whole exchange, I thought I was overtired. I thought I was hallucinating. I'd been up for many hours. I really did. But now, after hearing about your experiences, I now think that that's exactly what happened. I saw a small, young Sasquatch, baby, if you will, and its mother. And the baby wanted to physically probably go out and look at the hairless humans running around in the middle of the night. I don't know. But that really happened, I think, now. I think I really heard that voice inside my head, as if someone had just spoken right into my ear.
Yeah.
So that was my idea. I went over the next day, and what I saw at the side of the bathhouse, I saw a big pile of leaves that had been jumped on. So like all kids, the baby was jumping in the leaves. And that's my little experience.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it sounds exactly like something they would do, and they do have that ability, you know, to speak in our minds, just as you described.
Yeah. Maybe they have a way of figuring if you're open to it. I don't know, or receptive. I'm not sure, because you know you don't hear about this a whole lot, about this aspect that you're discussing, this spirituality, this telepathy, this advanced thinking. This is something that you're bringing into this equation.
They have another ability, and it's you know, when you describe this. You know, our current status quo would say, oh, that's just a dream. But they have the ability to make contact in that state, in that dream state. And I've met several of Neff's family this way. There's been incidents that have happened, and they even brought one of their children to me, which at this point I now believe it was Anastasia, because it was a little child about yay high way back. This was in 2013. And I was laying on the couch on my side. Again, I was in that theta state, and suddenly I could sense an older female in my peripheral. And next thing I know, there's a young child, and I ended up holding her hand. And I was conscious enough in that state to give my hand a little shake to purposely get a reaction from her. So I was conscious enough to make that decision in that state. And when I did that, there was an explosion of her energy that just ran up through my arm, through my body. I could feel all her emotions as they were my own. She was so freaked out, but so happy and excited at the same time. And she didn't pull away, and it lasted a little longer, and then it was over, and I woke up, you know, and just completely mind blown. So that was... It really showed me who they were as a people when I could literally feel her emotions as my own.
Oh my goodness. Do you think, before we talk about the wonderful cast you took here, do you think that there is some there would be some way that on our planet we could live in harmony with these beings, like they could have their own areas, their own preserve. What would make them happy? I know they've got to be fearful and upset by all of these amateur crypto hunters out there with all their abusive stuff that they're doing, and they're yelling and they're this and that. What could we do, or have they told you what they need from us?
They haven't really conveyed anything that way to me. Humans, obviously, we need to wake up, right? You know, I think they're revealing their existence. They did give me an experience once with an image. I had just woken up, so I was fresh awake, and my mind was very fresh. And they gave me an image of dozens of them walking across an open meadow, all in the same direction, and it was followed by the words, "Soon your people will know." And it was such clarity with it. They were basically telling me that soon your people will know us. And so I've actually been able to watch this unfold since then, as this subject has grown and expanded. You know, since I first started, I believe they are exposing their existence because of the damage we're doing to the earth, right?
Yeah,
This is
go.
my understanding. Not that they told
Yeah.
me that, but it's just
Yeah.
very strong feelings.
It has to be. This is the message coming from advanced beings, coming from Sasquatch, coming from maybe our progenitors, other contacts people are having with esoteric beings of all sorts. This is the message. This is the message.
Yeah, we're poisoning everything, right?
We are, but we're also waking up.
Yeah.
We've got that Greta Thunberg, and we've got all kinds of things, all kinds of awareness going on. Now, Mike, tell us a little bit about, you brought us some artifacts, which is fantastic. And there are 3 footprints here. Now, I understand that these were made, or at least these 2 were made in the snow.
Oh, actually, they're
All of them were made
they're
in the
all
snow.
cast in the snow.
That takes
yeah.
a lot of another aspect. That takes a lot of pressure, doesn't it? To I mean, the weight of these beings has to be kind of obvious by the depth of the cast, right?
Actually, not in the situation we're in, because what's happening, we're surrounded by woods, but we're not in the woods when this is happening. It's basically a single lane gravel road outside the cottage, and this is where they're leaving trackways. And we've documented hundreds of footprints from them, and 100% of them go nowhere. They start out of thin air and they stop. Sometimes, much of the time, they're single prints, and there's been trackways left. So the road is plowed pretty much. You know, there might be a layer of snow on there. You know, it's frozen gravel underneath, so you're only going to put you know, your foot down so much, even if you're 2,000 pounds, right, a vehicle or whatever. So they tend to place it, strategically place their prints where we will find them, and also in a spot they'll pick a nice fresh patch of clean snow, which they tend to do, which is quite awesome. I just love that, how they do that. And so yeah, it's not necessarily, I get a lot of comments that, oh, that should be deeper in the snow, and that's when I explain, well,
yeah.
maybe there's only an inch of snow down, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, so
Yeah.
it varies.
So it does
Yeah.
vary. Now, this print here is from Neff,
Yeah, that's
one of the
Neff,
beings
yes.
you're communicating with, and you say this is from when he was a teenager or
Yeah,
younger.
so
Could you hold it up so we can take the
Yep.
camera can get a good look at that?
yeah.
Look
So
at that.
this was cast on April 13th, 2013, and I had sent a cast copy to John Bindernagel, who's you know, he's now passed, right? He was involved in this subject for about 4 decades, and he had told me the bulbous toe and the width on the foot are indications of, you know, it being Sasquatch. I already
yeah.
knew it was,
Yeah.
but so Neff was 17 years old when he gave that, and the vocals that you're going to hear
In the show.
in the show, yeah, they come from him.
Right.
and he's basically 17, 18, 19, depends on what vocals you're hearing, right? Because I've been documenting his family activity for close to roughly 8 years now, right? So that was 2013. And then this was just, I have another one, I didn't bring it, where it's actually 2 inches bigger than that one. That was cast in 2018. And that's 12 inches in length there. So his foot now is 16 inches. So this was cast this year. So that's the difference. That's the same individual. This is only about a month or 6 weeks old. I can't remember the exact date. I have to look it up. So that's the same individual. And it's funny because I asked about I think out loud. I ask questions and say things, and they tend to happen with the activity there. So I wondered about the growth in his foot, and he gave that on purpose.
So you could see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also wondered about the size of him in comparison to us, which I didn't bring any drawings or anything, but they did give a drawing. And it's funny, Dwayne's a little taller than me, so they gave a drawing with me on one side, Dwayne on the other, Neff in the middle, his hands on both our heads. And Dwayne's slightly taller in the picture, just like in real life, and Neff in comparison is just, I figure he's probably got to be close to 8 feet tall at this point. And it's funny because they even give little initials, an M for Mike and a D for Dwayne.
Oh, is it?
N for Neff. It's like, yeah, you really got to put the N for Neff there, didn't you? And they drew a heart beside it. So they're very, very loving, compassionate. They've been, some people would hear some of the vocals he's done and they'd be scared, very afraid, when actually it's just his boisterous antics. He's having a good time. They're very lighthearted, and we called him Mr. Funny before he gave his name, before we finally got his name. So,
isn't that something? Well, this is a kind of off-the-wall question, but being a musician, Mike, do they respond to music? Have you ever played any different types of music for Neff and his family?
It's funny. Recently, I have this nice bass flute that I bought, and I'm not very good at it, but I took it up there and I played it, and I got no response. It's like, okay.
You got no respect.
Yeah, I guess I
don't get
suck
no
at that,
respect.
but we've left them gifts. Like one of the first things I ever left was it's called a jam block, a percussion piece. I think I paid $40 for that thing, and it disappeared like that. Jeez. And then left them, cheap dollar store flute, and sometimes you'll hear a friend of mine gave me a rattle, little native-made rattle that I left on location at this other place I go to pitch my tent. It's in the same region, and I have my audio recorder there. And I hear it get picked up in a little rattle there, and it disappeared, right? So probably took it for one of the children. So they do mess with the instruments. Yeah. I haven't really gotten a response playing anything for them.
Okay, I'm just wondering. I mean, there was a Lakota woman, a Native American woman, told me that at her tribe, and of course I think this probably goes all over to most indigenous peoples, that they accept the Sasquatch. They call them special people. Their special people is the translation of their word for them. And she told me that her tribe, which was in, again, the Black Hills of South Dakota, whenever they caught salmon or big fish, they had a certain place next to the river where they would leave the gift. They would leave, it was always half of whatever they caught. They would leave for the Sasquatch, and that the beings would return that generosity with little crafts. She said they made what looked like little masks or little faces with reeds.
I have some of those.
No way.
Oh yeah, they've done the same with us, given us gifts. And
really?
Yeah, and you can tell they're made from different individuals. Some young and not really learned yet, and older ones that are very intricate pieces. And Dwayne's been given a couple that have marbles woven inside them.
The marbles.
The marble
The
thing.
marbles are big with,
Yeah.
the,
Yes.
with the Sasquatch.
Oh, between us, we
Yeah.
probably ended up with, this was a while back now, so probably more, at least 1,500.
Marbles.
Oh, every visit. I keep joking with them, like, you guys run out yet? You know, you run out of marbles? Last visit, I come home with, I think, 5. So. and what happens, like I've been standing there in the room, I have a glass in my hand, and I hear tink, oh, got a marble. You know, they come out of thin air, and I've had one dropped right into my hands while I'm sitting in a chair, and it's
Classic ape-hoarding.
oh yeah.
They've got it down.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Why do you think that, and this is kind of an odd question, I suppose, but why do you think that you have been sort of selected as the only person that I know of, that Wes knows of, who is having these beautiful experiences?
I was going to ask that too.
It's funny when you said why. I already knew what you were going to say as soon as you started saying it. I already knew your question. I don't know. You know, they perhaps it's my. I have the backbone, the fortitude, I'm able to push through the fear. My heart is pure. I have integrity. You know, I haven't always made the right choices in life, but you know, at this
Who
point,
has, you know?
yeah, at this point, I'm trying to do the right thing, and you know, that's for the greater good, and I think they see that, so they keep showing up, right? So
They
I'm
know who you
obviously
are.
doing something right.
Well, maybe in you know, maybe in your past lives as a humanoid, maybe you've been close with them
Oh,
in
they-
other lifetimes.
Yeah, they gave me some information on that, but I'm not going to say it on
Oh,
camera.
okay. All right. We'll save that for next
Yeah.
time.
Well, I would like to follow up on that question. We have a friend who's a guest sometimes on the show. We call him an ambassador. Would you consider yourself an ambassador?
You know, I don't like to label myself with, I'm just like anybody else, just given an extraordinary experience that I feel needs to be shared because this helps the collective, and so I'm, you know, I'm just like anybody else.
Part of the why me question, though, isn't it? You're bringing this to the world.
Yeah. Well, when it happened, I have a big mouth. I can't shut up about it, right? I just want to tell the world. So
Yeah. Well,
you
you're
know, it's-
supposed to.
Yeah, it's too much to hold in. And there's so many people that contact me and tell me their experiences that they don't tell to anybody, and I can tell they're so happy to finally be able to get it out and talk to somebody who understands and is a knower, right? So,
Indeed. Now, do you think that when they, when the Sasquatch are physical, and they're going through their experiences, do they have, like, do they rest in caves, or do they have campgrounds, or are they just always on the move? They seem to be constantly moving around, but that may not even be true.
it seems they don't need much sleep, I'll tell you that.
Oh, okay.
As far as where they reside, I have my ideas, but I tend to keep things about that close to me because, you know, I'm sure there's people in positions of authority that are searching for them. In fact, there are people that want to kill them off. They've relayed this to me because I asked them about certain things, and one of the questions was, actually Dwayne asked, are they trying to kill us all? And they had written same as us, basically them, same as them, right? There's people that, yeah, they do not want them here, they want them gone, because they are a threat to the status quo. They break the system,
Oh, they
their
do.
truth. Oh yeah, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
why, and this is why I do this.
Yeah.
That's why I do this, because it breaks this status quo.
Beautiful. Well, that's what we're all about.
Oh, yes.
You
Yeah,
know?
many years.
Now, this has been, I'm not sure how much time we have. I think
Oh, we've got a few minutes to go.
we've got a few minutes
Yeah,
to go.
easily, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So what do you see in that vision that they gave you in your dream is beautiful, by the way. I can almost go in your head and see it. You know, all of them just strolling across a beautiful grassy land, not unafraid, being able to live their lives in peace, in harmony with the earth. I can see that, and it feels like it is a timeline that could very well be activated, that they could absolutely be moving into that place where they're acknowledged and become protected. I mean, there are already, at least in Canada, there are provinces that make any kind of hunting or killing of Sasquatch or a crime. That's would be something that would have to, their legal protection, I think, would need to happen.
The biggest thing for me that I would love to see in all this is clear cutting stopped. Just shut it down. Enough already. You know, leave the old growth forests and, you know, select cutting. I understand that, even though I don't like that either. But as far as the clear cutting goes, yeah, it's got to stop. It's just decimating the earth, right? So.
Our ability to produce oxygen and sustain all of the different life forms.
The trees clean the air. They give us oxygen. Shade the earth. Keep things cool. You know, give it homes to so many critters, and so it's and especially the Sasquatch. You know, it's their home, and I'm quite confident the logging companies are well aware of their existence.
Oh, they'd have to be.
Yeah.
They'd have to be, right? Because, you know, if they were
Cahoots?
if they were making entrances into
incurrences, yeah.
That the Sasquatch would be up to they could do their trickery, and they could be making things pretty difficult if people were in certain areas. Not to hurt anyone, but they could do all kinds of stuff, I imagine, to stop something they wanted to stop. But do you think they have a non-interference policy?
I would think that some of their people do not like us very, you know, because they see what we do, the damage we do, how we treat each other and the earth. Neff's family, they're very compassionate, very loving. I had an experience once, his voice come out of thin air, basically, very adamant about the word love, and it just kind of blew my mind the way it happened. And so they're very evolved that way, understanding love is the most powerful force, and they wish us to get, you know, to be the same, to understand that. And they're very, you know, they're the epitome of don't judge a book by its cover. They really are. Their consciousness is very advanced.
Indeed. Ironically, I was thinking about that very, very noted piece of footage, the Patterson footage,
Yeah, the
right?
Patterson demo.
Oddly, do you believe that is in fact a Sasquatch or a female Sasquatch, or do you believe it was faked, or what's your feeling on the classic Patterson?
That's 100% real. It's you know, that's 1967.
Yeah.
You look at that. Hollywood couldn't come close to that.
No.
I actually did an interview not too long ago. It was a native radio station in Yakima, Washington, and Bob Gimlin was on that
Oh, really?
interview. So that was,
Okay.
yeah, that was really, I'm trying to get a copy of that. But I was told afterwards that he was just elated with that discussion, because I'm full on
Yeah.
paranormal
Yeah.
talk, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
hold back. And,
Right.
And I guess he is well aware of that. So as far as their abilities, and you know, a lot of people say, well, why didn't she just disappear? You know, maybe they don't want us to see that happen. I don't know. I did ask them the question once, can all your people go invisible? And they wrote yes. So.
It's just a tweak on the radio dial for them.
Yeah.
It's just a frequency tweak.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe she was pulling their attention away from her family, possibly. You know.
It's because she was female. It definitely seemed as if she was looking behind to see if they were following her. I tend to go with that.
Yeah, maybe there was
scenario.
children involved in the.
I think there were.
situation, yeah.
I think there were. I think and if the my little interaction of that voice full of love that I heard in my head, I just want to take care of my baby, I'm not going to bother you. If that's any example of their maternal loving way, It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're very family oriented for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down any negative paths because this is what you do. This is your work. But have you met resistance, human resistance?
All kinds of it.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Or?
Yeah, I won't give any specifics
Sure.
as far as names go because I don't want to give them any attention, but this situation has been plagued with harassment, trespassing, stalking, slander. It's just been ongoing for years. They're trying to, make me go away, paint me as a hoaxer, and I bring on your army, and it still won't be enough. I'm not going away. So they try, and even flying this Cessna, as I mentioned to you before, over the cottage, and we were given a drawing showing that they were using technology that was coming out of that plane, and the plane was so low that I think it might have.
Violated policy?
Violated, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the audio recording. You can hear the engine so loud, it's like, whoa, it's right there. And so I'm thankful that Neff's family has this interdimensional quality about them that allows them to hide from those of us who, have nefarious intentions towards them.
Good.
But you're still bringing the word out. You have changed your YouTube channel, right? Did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I recently changed it to paid subscription,
Okay,
although
good.
I've left a bunch of videos up there still for public.
Yeah.
I was asked by the cottage owner to not put any new content out publicly because it's just bringing too much attention.
Oh, I see.
okay.
Yeah.
And it brings
That makes
trespassing.
sense. That
more-
makes sense.
Even though, hey,
Yeah.
they can still pay and go behind the wall, but we do our best to keep an eye open for anybody that comes around the cottage, and that we tend to do most of our visits in the wintertime when there's snow on the ground. Humans can't hide their prints like the Sasquatch can.
Right,
So.
they can't. You're a little more protected if you're having these encounters primarily in the winter.
Yeah, there's less people up there too. There
Yeah.
are a lot of cottages in the region, right? This whole adage of assumption of remote mountainous regions or places where there's no people that you have to go to find activity. That's just it's hogwash. They can be anywhere they want to be. They can be, as Dave mentioned earlier, they can be right here, right now, and we wouldn't know it unless they wanted us to. So.
Well, I'm going to ask you when you have a chance to please thank them. Thank Neff and his family for, endorsing you to come and talk about them as loving, evolved beings, and we all hope for a better world where they can live in harmony and peace, and we can live in harmony and peace with them. That would
Definitely.
be a dream to be able to.
I let them know all the time. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. And we know people know how to get in touch with you,
Yes, we need to
Mike?
know that.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I have my website, sasquatchontario.com.
Mm-hmm.
I don't update it very often, but there's a contact
And you'll be able to.
form on there. You can send me an email, sasquatchontario@yahoo.ca.
Good,
Okay.
wonderful.
Is the email address, and then there's my YouTube channel as well. I probably have about 6-7 dozen videos altogether on there.
Whoa.
Wow.
I'm still, making new content. I have some new content to post with this past winter's activities too.
Well, we're very
Wonderful.
thankful to have you here, and we're thankful for our viewers too, right? You were gonna
Yes,
say
we're
something at
thankful
the
for
end.
our viewers, and I'm going to deliver this right to you. Please like and subscribe to our channel, Contact TV.
Our
We would
Contact
appreciate
TV.
our Contact TV. And Mike, thank you again. It's been such an honor welcoming you here to the show and your message, and we're thrilled to be able to maybe reach a few people and get their brains opened up.
I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
And remember, we are not alone. We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Leslie Mitchell-Clark,
and Wes Roberts.
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts.
Thank you.